And welcome back to another BobBlast. Hi, I'm Bob Burridge, and this one is all about doing a series and a whole idea. When you have a whole idea, I just want to just keep painting it, not just one time, but now a series. How many different ways can you take one idea and in your creativity to be as loose and as wild as you possibly can with one idea? What you see back here on the wall was one idea. I wanted to do a series of paintings that represented some stories from the Bible, okay? And one of them was manna from heaven. You know, all this food came down. And what we're doing here is 10 inch by 10 inches. First of all, put gold down. I got interested in gold painting when the King Tut back in the 70s was the big deal when it came to the United States. Remember? Everyone's paying attention about King Tut. But anyway, I wanted to do something that looked like it found in her tomb. A lot of stuff found in her tomb, even coffee. But these were like gold plaques. But I wanted to tell the story of manna from heaven. So what's the common denominator in everything in here is a bowl. A bowl, something to carry something, the manna from heaven, water, food, and so it's nutrition coming, there you go. So the whole idea visually was a bowl. That was going to be how many different ways can I do a bowl and also tell the story? We're collecting things and holding on to something that's really precious. And I did it in gold and simple, and also with just torn black tissue paper. That's the other thing I wanted to play around with, and a little bit of black paint too. So these are acrylics, 10 by 10. And then I got the idea of putting them all together and telling a bigger story. Besides, I like the big square. And I did a whole bunch of them. Many of them, I have a whole lot more to do. And how many different ways can I do the one idea? It's one of those playtimes in the studio when no one's looking. And just be as wild and crazy as you possibly can, right? So everyone is slightly different, and this is one idea. A lot of it is very graphic, graphic in this sense. And then a lot of it is very textural. So I'm playing with different textures and making my own textures with the Holbein acrylic texture paints. You can get that stuff. But just simple tissue paper, and all of this is torn, and I glue it down with gel medium, that's the glue, on top of the gold, and then we'll see what happens after that. And then I started adding the white or tearing the paper, and how many different visual effects can I have? And I also started thinking about some gray in there, like let's really make it old. And so simple, very graphic. I was really entertaining myself. I was laughing the whole time I was doing this because these ideas, once you open up that floodgate and give yourself permission to have a good time and just do this wacky stuff, but still be legitimate. Be an artist. Express your soul. That's what you're doing. That's what people are looking at. They're looking at your soul, not your techniques or the details. No details in these. It's to get the impression very graphic, instant, fast. Anyway, that was the whole idea of the concept. Let me show you how I get started on the 5 C's. So this is a chart that I have in my studio. You can see there's paint all over it. And I refer to it all the time. I can't remember all this stuff. So before I do a painting, or a group of paintings, I go through what I call the 5 C's. Pretty easy. What's the concept? Believe it or not, what's the big idea? Why am I doing this painting? So you got to ask that question. And you have to really want to do this painting. Not just kind of tiptoe through the garden. You want to do this painting. So write down the concept. In other words, decide what you want, then make it happen. These are notes to me. Shortcut. Composition, that's the next letter C. Composition, well, what would it be? Some of these would be like this one would be vertical composition. I use about 16 different designs in composition. Off balance, I always love the off balance composition where you have a whole lot of stuff going on over here, then it's really quiet, and then a focal point, bam, just like that. One of the compositions I like to play with. Off balance, everything's in the middle, by the way. There's another typical one. Off balance, quiet areas, busy areas. These are the design compositions that I like to goof around with. Boy, right in the middle. Are you kidding me? How many times do they say, don't put it in the middle? That's when you gotta put it in the middle. They say that's their idea. This is your idea. It's fun to being a bad boy, right? And working with just cardboard from the boxes, you know, those inside of the boxes, you tear off the paper, you get these beautiful little textures here. And these are all the pieces that ended up on the floor when I was making all of these, and I decided to put them into the collage. Boy, you can see you can get really involved using the gel medium as the glue. Everything is completely different, trying different techniques. And I like the fact that I didn't use this pair of scissors, you know, or anything like that. And so you get all kinds of pieces, weird pieces. Color combination. Well, the color combination to hold the whole thing together, very limited palette. Basically, mostly it's just gold, black, and maybe a warm tone in here. And you'll notice also there's different kinds of golds. Even though the label says gold, bright gold, different manufacturers have a different kind of their idea of what gold is. So I recommend getting as many different kinds that you can find at the art store. Getting a real art store will have so many different kinds, and they're all going to be good because they're professional. You're at an art store. All right. So again, so that's the simple. So you don't need to have all the colors. I was trying to teach myself to paint this way so I could have a real strong impact, instant impact with a whole lot of colors. Okay, I'm dialing it back. You continue, talk about continue. I'm saying I'm continuing it, and the commitment. There's a lot to be said about me being committed, but be committed to the idea. Don't keep changing your mind. Oh, let's do this. Oh, let's do this. And you're working on a painting, and you keep changing your mind. You end up with a really thick painting, right? With a whole lot of good ideas. So when you change your mind, don't, by the way, but when you do change your mind, change your paper. Go over to another canvas or another piece of paper. Simple as that. And your pieces will be really strong. Okay, and now I'm going to show you how I get started. So to get started, what I do is tape them all together. All 10 inches by 10 inches, all pre-cut, you know, tape them with this box tape. You know, it's going to be removed later on. And that's on the back side. Now, this is when I try different textures. Some are scraped. This is all the gold gesso. These are the gold gessos from the different manufacturers. And I'll start doing some collage work. There's cheesecloth, you know, all that kind of stuff that you guys do with your textures. This is a really thick watercolor paper. This is 300-pound watercolor paper. And what I like about it, I can actually carve my fingernails into here because there's little grooves in here besides just the paint grooves. Then you really come in and cut up more. It just takes a beating. That's what I like about it. And look, it stays nice and flat. And now the next step is after that dries, after all this goes, then I come back and start cutting up collage papers and black papers and tissues and get out my gel medium. But I'll be doing that one on the next BobBlast, okay? So stay tuned. This is the part one of how I get started on a series and a concept. Mostly, what's the concept? What's the big idea? You have to ask yourself that before you pick up the brush. Well, I hope this little quick, fun start of the day is helpful for you. Try it. It doesn't have to be 10. They can be smaller, and they don't have to be so many, but I get better when I do more and more and more and practice and practice and practice. Remember, practice being an artist. Practice being a painter, if that's what you're going to say. I'm practicing. Great. Keep your brushes wet. I'll see you on the next BobBlast.